In this episode, we're going to look at how malware is changing as attackers begin using AI to make malicious software harder to spot and harder to block. Malware is a broad term for software designed to cause harm, steal information, or gain unauthorized control, and it has been evolving for decades. What feels new is the way AI can help attackers create many variations quickly, adjust behavior to avoid detection, and hide intent inside code that looks different each time. For brand new learners, the goal is not to learn how malware is written, but to understand how defenders think about malware behavior, why hiding techniques matter, and what it means when we say detection has gaps. If you have ever wondered why security tools sometimes miss threats or why an infection can spread even when protections exist, the answer often involves how malware avoids being recognized. By the end, you should have a clear picture of obfuscation, mutation, and why AI changes the speed and scale of these techniques. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. To understand malware evolution, it helps to start with a simple idea. Defenders try to recognize bad things, and attackers try to avoid being recognized. Early malware could sometimes be detected by looking for known patterns, like a specific chunk of code or a unique sequence of bytes. That approach is similar to recognizing a familiar face in a crowd, and it works well when the face stays the same. Attackers responded by changing the appearance of malware while keeping the function, which is similar to changing clothes, hairstyle, and posture while still being the same person. This is where obfuscation comes in, because obfuscation is the practice of making something harder to understand or analyze without changing what it does. The attacker's goal is to make the malware look different to scanners and analysts while still accomplishing the same tasks, like stealing data or installing a backdoor. When AI is added, attackers can generate many obfuscated versions faster, test which ones get caught, and keep iterating until they find a version that slips through. Obfuscation can happen at different levels, and beginners should think of it as hiding meaning, not just hiding words. In code, obfuscation might involve renaming variables to nonsense, rearranging instructions, adding extra steps that do nothing, or encrypting strings so that the intent is not visible at a glance. In files, it can involve packing or compressing content so that scanners cannot easily read the real instructions without first unpacking them. In behavior, it can involve delaying actions, blending into normal system activity, or checking whether the malware is being watched before doing anything suspicious. The key is that obfuscation is about making analysis costly and slow, because time favors the attacker when defenders cannot quickly identify and stop the threat. AI can help attackers choose obfuscation strategies that resemble normal code patterns or common software behaviors, which makes the malicious content feel less unusual. This creates a situation where defenders must rely more on what the program does over time rather than what it looks like in a single snapshot. Mutation is closely related, but it focuses on change across versions rather than hiding within one version. When malware mutates, it produces variations of itself that are functionally similar but not identical in structure. You can imagine a set of keys that all open the same door, but each key has a slightly different shape. Some mutation is manual, where attackers edit and repackage malware between campaigns, but some mutation can be automated, where the malware or the attacker's tooling creates many variants. AI makes mutation easier because it can rewrite code in many different ways while preserving the high-level logic, like rewriting the same story using different sentences and synonyms. This matters because many detection methods depend on recognizing known patterns, and mutation disrupts those patterns. If every copy of the malware looks slightly different, defenders cannot rely on one signature catching all future copies. Instead, defenders need more general methods that focus on behavior, relationships, and context. A related idea is polymorphism, which is a form of mutation where the malware changes its code appearance each time it spreads or runs, often by encrypting its content and changing the decryption method. Another related idea is metamorphism, where the malware rewrites itself more deeply, changing its internal structure and instruction patterns. You do not need to memorize these terms to understand the point. Attackers aim to keep function while changing form. AI can help generate these changes more convincingly, creating variations that do not look like obvious machine-generated noise. When defenders see this, they face an increased workload because they must analyze more samples and cannot easily group them by simple similarity. The attacker's advantage is that generating variants can be cheap and fast, while analyzing and responding can be slow and expensive. Detection gaps happen when the defender's tools and processes cannot observe, interpret, or respond to malicious activity quickly enough. There are several reasons gaps occur, and beginners should see them as normal challenges rather than as total failures. One reason is visibility, because if a defender cannot see what is happening, they cannot detect it. Another reason is ambiguity, because many malware behaviors resemble legitimate behaviors, like opening files, connecting to networks, or starting processes. A third reason is volume, because organizations have so much activity that it is hard to separate the dangerous signals from normal noise. AI-assisted obfuscation and mutation increase all three problems. Because they reduce the clarity of what a sample is, they blur behavior into normal patterns, and they increase the number of unique-looking variants. This can lead to missed detections or delayed detections, where the malware is discovered only after it has already caused harm. It is also important to understand the difference between static and dynamic detection, because obfuscation and mutation often target static methods. Static detection looks at a file without running it, checking its structure, known patterns, and obvious indicators. Static methods can be fast and safe, which is why they are widely used, but they struggle when malware is packed, encrypted, or heavily obfuscated. Dynamic detection looks at behavior while something runs, observing actions like file access, network connections, and changes to system settings. Dynamic methods can catch threats that static methods miss, but they can be harder to scale and can produce more false alarms because many programs do similar things. Attackers try to evade dynamic detection by hiding behavior, delaying actions, or checking whether they are in a watched environment. AI can help attackers choose evasion techniques that fit specific situations, increasing the chance that the malware behaves quietly until it is on a real target. For beginners, one of the most useful ways to understand detection gaps is to think about what defenders are trying to answer. Defenders want to know what is running, what it is trying to do, what it is connected to, and whether it matches known safe behavior. Malware tries to confuse those questions by disguising itself, acting normal, and changing its appearance. AI speeds up the attacker's ability to test and refine these disguises, which creates a feedback loop where evasion improves over time. This does not mean defenders are helpless, because defenders also adapt, but it does mean that simple assumptions like my antivirus will catch everything are not safe assumptions. A healthy security mindset is that detection is probabilistic, not absolute, and that layered defenses matter. When one layer misses, another layer can still reduce harm, such as limiting privileges, segmenting systems, and requiring additional approvals for sensitive actions. Another misconception is that malware is always loud and obviously destructive, like a screen full of warnings or files being visibly deleted. Many modern threats aim for quiet persistence, meaning they want to stay hidden for as long as possible to steal data or maintain access. Obfuscation helps the malware avoid analysis, and mutation helps it avoid being grouped and blocked quickly. AI helps attackers improve both, and it can also help them tune malware to specific environments, so it behaves differently depending on what it finds. That tuning might include avoiding actions that trigger common alerts, or choosing times when monitoring is weaker. For defenders, this reinforces the importance of baselines, because you need to know what normal looks like in order to spot subtle differences. It also reinforces the importance of response readiness, because even small signs can matter if they indicate an early stage of a larger compromise. When we say malware evolution creates detection gaps, we are also talking about a human gap, not just a tool gap. Analysts have limited time, and organizations have limited resources, so attackers try to overload defenders with volume and complexity. AI-generated variants can flood the ecosystem with samples that look different enough to require separate analysis, even if the core threat is the same. This can delay the creation of reliable detections and allow more victims to be hit before defenses catch up. Defenders respond by focusing on higher-level signals, like unusual patterns of behavior across systems, suspicious relationships between events, and indicators that persist across variants, such as certain communication patterns or sequences of actions. Even when the code changes, many attacks still need to achieve the same outcomes, and those outcomes leave traces. This is why defenders emphasize behavior-based thinking and why you will often hear about detecting techniques rather than detecting specific files. As we close, the main idea is that AI-assisted malware evolution is about making malicious software harder to recognize by changing how it looks and by hiding what it means. Obfuscation makes a single sample harder to understand and analyze, while mutation produces many variants that disrupt pattern-based detection. These techniques create detection gaps because they reduce visibility, increase ambiguity, and multiply the number of unique samples defenders must handle. The right beginner takeaway is not fear, but realism. Security tools are important, but they are not perfect, and attackers actively work to bypass them. A layered approach that combines detection with controls that limit damage is how defenders stay resilient as malware evolves. When you understand why malware changes and how it avoids being recognized, you are better prepared to think like a defender who expects adaptation and builds defenses that still hold when the threat does not look the same twice.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.